నమస్కారం. డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ సార్వత్రిక విశ్వవిద్యాలయం విద్యార్థులకు స్వాగతం. ఈ ప్రసారంలో
Hello students, today I am going to explain you the topic cell, its structure and its functions. So recent developments in the chemistry led to the study of chemistry of biological things and chemistry of living systems. So in order to get some clear idea regarding this, first of all you have to know some important basics of biology. In this regard, today I am going to explain you the cell, its structure and its functions. Okay, so cell is the basic unit of life. If you observe our surroundings, you may come across with several living organisms and non-living things. You may wonder and sometimes you may get questioned that what making the difference between living things and non-living organisms. So what is the actual ingredient that is present in the living organisms but not present in the non-living system? So the answer to this question is the basic unit of life, that is cell. All the living organisms are made up of cells. Some organisms contain only one cell. They are called as unicellular organisms. Some may contain several cells, just like example plants and animals. Like higher animals, they are composed of several cells. For example, if you take a human body, the human body is composed of several systems, just like digestive, respiratory systems. Each system is composed of several organs and each organ is made up of tissues. So the tissue is known as a group of cells which perform similar functions. So the basic thing is cell. So cell is the basic unit of structure, function and life. Let's start with the structure of cell. In all kinds of organisms, the three basic things are present in the cell. So they are the DNA, the genetic material, and cytoplasm, which is a fluid which holds all the cell organelles, and cell membrane, which separates the cell from its surroundings. So irrespective of the cell type, these three composites are common in all the cells. So broadly, cells are classified into two types. They are prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cell. So the prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells generally differentiated based on their nucleus. In prokaryotic cell, the DNA, genetic information, is freely available in the cytoplasm. That means it is not separated from the cytoplasm. Whereas in case of eukaryotic cell, the DNA, genetic information, is present in the cytoplasm and it is surrounded by a membrane. That nuclear membrane is separating the nucleus from other things of the cell. So that is called eukaryotic cell. So let's start with prokaryotic cell. So the prokaryotic cell is composed of cell membrane, cytoplasm and the DNA. So the DNA, genetic information, is freely available in the cytoplasm and it is also called as naked DNA. In the bacteria, along with this naked DNA, there is some other circular DNA is also there, that is called plasmid. Along with this, the prokaryotic cells also contain other cell organelle, that is ribosomes. So the ribosomes are granular substances which are composed of two subunits. They are small one and large one. So these ribosomes are composed of protein and RNA. So the ribosomes are mainly used in the protein synthesis. During the gene expression, the genetic information from the DNA is converted into mRNA and then this process is called as transcription. During the translation process, ribosomes attach to the mRNA. Ribosomes attach to the mRNA in a form of chain or polypeptide chain. Just with the translation process, a polypeptide chain is produced. That produced polypeptide chain is converted into its protein form and that is excreted from the cell. This is called a gene expression. Next, coming to eukaryotic cell. So eukaryotic cell are further classified into plant cell and animal cell, and all the eukaryotic cells have similar cell organelles. Compared to prokaryotic cells, eukaryotic cell have other cell organelles, they are called mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi complex, like that. We will clearly discuss about cell organelles present in the eukaryotic cells. So, the main differentiation between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell is the nuclear membrane. In eukaryotic cell, the nucleus is surrounded by nuclear membrane, and inside that nuclear membrane the genetic information is present in DNA or chromatin fibers. The chromatin fibers in the normal state they appear like fibers. When the cell division taking place, they condense and forms chromosomes. Along with chromatin, the nucleus also contains some globular bodies, they are called nucleolus. So, the nucleolus is mainly involved in the production of ribosomes and mRNA. Nucleolus produces ribosomes, and the produced ribosomes passes through the nucleus through nuclear membrane pores, and they enter into cytoplasm. In the cytoplasm they perform, that is, translation function or production of proteins. Endoplasmic reticulum. To the external surface of nuclear membrane there are elongated membrane sac like structures, they are called as endoplasmic reticulum. This endoplasmic reticulum may be a rough one or smoothed one. This endoplasmic reticulum is a reticular structure enclosed with membrane. So, the rough endoplasmic reticulum, which is composed of ribosomes. So, this involves the production of proteins. Ribosomes involved in the protein synthesis, and the synthesized proteins are stored in the endoplasmic reticulum, and this rough endoplasmic reticulum transfers the stored proteins or synthesized proteins to Golgi complex. So, the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, which is lack of ribosomes. So, this smooth endoplasmic reticulum involved in the lipid synthesis process. So, the synthesized proteins and lipids from the endoplasmic reticulum, they move from the endoplasmic reticulum and reaches to the Golgi complex. So, this transport process is carried out by vesicles. So, generally the vesicles are pinched off from the endoplasmic reticulum and they reach to the Golgi complex and they fuse with the Golgi complex. Golgi complex. So, Golgi complex is a reticular structure, reticular flattened structure. So, this Golgi complex mainly involved in the packing and transportation and modification of several proteins, hormones and lipids. The proteins and protein related substances like enzymes, hormones, these are produced from the endoplasmic reticulum, are entered to the Golgi complex. Once they enter, they undergo certain modifications and certain foldings to produce the final form or quaternary structure of the protein, and that final form, after converting into final form, the proteins or hormones excreted from the endoplasmic reticulum as a vesicles. So, the excreted vesicles from the Golgi complex are passed to the cell membrane and they expel from the cell, just like excretion process. Cell membrane or biological membrane. So, the biological membrane is composed of lipid bilayer and some other proteins and a little amount of carbohydrates. The chemical structure or physical structure of the cell membrane involves the lipid bilayer formation. So, the formed lipid bilayer will be arranged in a form that the polar heads are outwards to the membrane and non-polar chains are inwards. That means both the surface of the membranes are polar in nature and the interior of the membrane is non-polar in nature, and this membrane is semi-permeable in nature. That means it allows the passage of few substances or selectively allows the passage of some substances. Okay, this selectivity is because of the proteins present in the membrane. The proteins which are embedded in the cell membrane, they forms a channel through which some molecules can pass through the membrane, and some carbohydrates are attached to these proteins, hence they are called glycoproteins. All the cell organelles in eukaryotic cells, all the cell organelles are also composed of membranes, this biological membrane. Next, mitochondria. Mitochondria is covered by phospholipid bilayer membrane, and it is composed of two layers. The external layer is surrounding the mitochondria, and the internal layer undergoes some foldings or projections to the inner side of the mitochondria. So, the projections in the inner side of the mitochondria are responsible in the respiration process. The mitochondria mainly involves in the respiration process and produces the energy of the cell, that is ATP. So, hence the mitochondria is also called as powerhouse of the cell. The number of the mitochondria depends upon the function of the cell. If the rapidly growing cell, it contains several thousands of mitochondria. Mitochondria also contain a circular DNA, chloroplast. So, chloroplast is an organ which is present in plant cell only. So, the cell organelles, the plant cells contain chloroplast. This is also covered by two membranes. So, inside of the chloroplast there is some liquid matrix that is called stoma, and inside the chloroplast there are discoid shape or discoid like structures. They are called as thylakoids. The thylakoids contain chlorophylls and they involved in the photosynthesis process. These thylakoids can be freely available in the matrix, or they may be stacked structures. The stacked structures are called as grana, and the thylakoids present in the stacked structure are called as grana thylakoids, and freely available thylakoid is called stoma thylakoid. All the reactions that is involved in the photosynthesis process, they are dark reactions and light reactions, all of them are takes place in these thylakoids and chloroplast. Hence, the chloroplast is present in autotrophic organisms only. Lysosomes, these are vesicle like structures. So, these vesicle like structures are produced from the Golgi complex. These are composed of several hydrolytic enzymes. So, these are in the acidic pH. So, the lysosomes mainly contains hydrolytic enzyme which can digest all the molecules, that is carbohydrates, proteins and amino acids and lipids. All these things can be digested by these hydrolytic enzymes. Hence, they are also called as digesters. Plastids, these are also vesicle like structures, are also called as storage bodies. So, these are present in plant cells. Mostly these are present in plant cells because they can produce some secondary metabolites. So, the secondary metabolites are stored in the plastids. Mostly the carbohydrates or protein things or lipids are stored in plastids. Cell wall. So, cell wall is present in plant cells only. So, this is some non-living substance. So, the cell wall is also present in prokaryotic cells like bacteria. So, in case of bacteria, the cell wall or external structure is composed of three units, that is external surface, that is glycocalyx and the actual cell wall, and internal cell membrane. So, the glycocalyx present in the bacteria or prokaryotics may be smooth structure or some kind of rigid structure. If the glycocalyx is smooth, then it is called slime. If the glycocalyx is rigid, then it is called as capsule. And the cell wall, internal to the glycocalyx there is cell wall. So, the cell wall is composed of cellulose like material in plants, and in bacteria and other organisms it will be a different composition. So, based on the composition of cell wall and glycocalyx, the bacteria can be classified into two types. So, this classification actually based on the staining material. So, if the bacteria are stained by the gram stain, then they are called as gram positive bacteria. If they are not stained by this gram dye, then they are called gram negative bacteria. Beside this cell wall, some bacteria also contain extracellular organs, just like flagella or some other things. So, which perform special functions like movement. In the case of plant cells, the Golgi complex produces these cellulose like materials and they can be excreted from the cell membrane and they reach the cell wall and they build the cell wall during the cell division or cell elongation process. Functions of the cell. So, cell is the basic structural, functional and living unit of the any organisms. So, the reason for life is cell and it performs different functions. The nucleus of the cell is also called as brain of the cell. It directs the functions which are performed by the cell. Sometimes the plasma membrane also contains some receptors. So, based on that receptors, when some other molecule is attached to the receptor, it triggers some function and produces some function in the cell. That means it produces some related proteins by the cell. So, the genetic material present in the DNA first converted into mRNA. So, that process is called as transcription. Then the mRNA comes out from the nucleus and reaches the cytoplasm. So, the cytoplasm is the basic of the cell. It is a matrix, it holds all the cell organelles and it keeps the organelles away from each other. So, within the cytoplasm, the mRNA it undergoes translation process by using ribosomes. So, ribosomes are present in both prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, but the ribosomes in the eukaryotic cell are different from the prokaryotic cells. Ribosomes in the prokaryotic cells are called as 70S ribosomes. These are formed from the combination of 50S subunit plus 30S subunit, and these are also contain proteins and RNA, that is called ribosomal RNA. And the ribosomes present in the eukaryotic cells are called as 80S ribosomes. These are formed by the combination of 60S unit with 40S unit. So, both the ribosomes perform the same function, that is protein synthesis. So, when the mRNA reaches to the ribosomes translate the mRNA, that means the genetic information present on the mRNA is converted into a sequence of amino acids which leads to a polypeptide chain. The sequence of the amino acids in the polypeptide chain decides the function of the formed protein. So, then this polypeptide chain is liberated into the endoplasmic reticulum or Golgi complex. So, this Golgi complex performs some modifications on these polypeptide chains. They undergo some foldings, they form secondary, tertiary and finally a quaternary structure. So, the sequence of amino acids may be converted into a protein or enzyme or some kind of hormones based on its nature. Okay, the formed protein or enzyme or hormone is liberated from the cell through vesicles. So, the vesicles which are pinched off from the Golgi complex will reach to the membrane and they fuse with the membrane, and the components of the vesicle are excreted from the membrane. So, this is the function of the cell. Desired proteins or lipids are synthesized from the cell. The energy required for the functioning of this cell is produced from the mitochondria. This is also called powerhouse of the cell, and this performs the respiration, and the produced energy because of the phosphorylation of electron transport that liberated as ATPs. The similarities and differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell. So, as we all know that both the cell types contain the genetic information DNA, cytoplasm and cell membrane. So, these three units are similarities between the prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. But in case of eukaryotic cell, there is a perfect membrane around the genetic material, that is called nuclear membrane, and the nucleus is clearly visible. Whereas in case of prokaryotic cell, there is no membrane surrounding the chromatin or DNA. So, this is naked DNA. So, the major difference in the prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell lies in the formation of nucleus and presence of other cell organelles. The similarities and differences between plant cell and animal cell. In case of similarities, both the plant and animal cells are composed of the chromosome, that means the true nucleus, cytoplasm and the cell membrane. Cell organelles present in the animal cell and plant cell. So, in both the type of cells, the endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi complex, vesicles, mitochondria all these are same. But in case of plant cells, there are plastids and chloroplast. The major difference between plant and animal cell is the presence of chloroplast. So, the chloroplast contains chlorophylls and it performs photosynthetic function. This function is absent in animal cells. Cell wall. Cell wall is the major difference between plant and animal cells. Only plant cells contain cell wall. The cell wall is a rigid structure which holds the shape of the cell. In case of animal cells, they doesn't have any cell wall and they have the structure and the shape depending upon their cell membrane only. Centrioles. So, centrioles are present in the animal cell only. So, the centrioles are the tubular structures or filament like structure. They are observed during the cell division process. At the time of cell division, they attach to the chromosomes and they drag the chromosomes. They separate the pair of chromosomes from each other and forms new progeny cells. So, in today's lesson, we have explained about the cell, its structure and functions. So, the cells are mainly composed of cell membrane, genetic material and cytoplasm. The cells are broadly classified into prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. And then the prokaryotic cells are the primitive cells and the eukaryotic cells which further classified into plant cells and animal cells. So, the presence of three main components of the cells in all the types of cells. This indicates that all the cells are formed from one cell and further developed during the evaluation process. The cells are formed from the one type of cell and further developed during the evolution process. The origin of life is started from the cell. So, the similarities we have observed in the plant, animal and prokaryotic cell. This concludes that the cell origin is same and they have developed and or they have undergone certain developments during the evolution processes.
ఈ కార్యక్రమాలపై మీ అభిప్రాయాల్ని, సూచనల్ని, సలహాల్ని ఆహ్వానిస్తున్నాం. మా చిరునామా ద డైరెక్టర్, ఆడియో విజువల్ ప్రొడక్షన్ అండ్ రీసెర్చ్ సెంటర్, డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ ఓపెన్ యూనివర్సిటీ, ప్రొఫెసర్ జి రామిరెడ్డి మార్క్, రోడ్ నంబర్ 46, జూబ్లీ హిల్స్, హైదరాబాద్ 500033.